Hello and welcome to the Cook Memorial Public Library podcast, where we invite you to spend just a few minutes with the staff at Cook Library. I'm Nate Goss, and I am here once again with our audiovisual librarian, Becky King. Welcome, Becky.
Thanks.
Today we are here to bring you another episode of Bonus Features. This is where we both recommend a new movie that we think is well worth your time, but that you might have missed. So why don't we just jump right into it, Becky? I'm going to have you go first.
Okay.
And why don't you go ahead and share with our listeners the movie you really think that they should check out?
Okay, this is a good one, I think, and I'm sure you're like me when you're on the reference desk. You often get questions about people who just want a good movie to watch.
Sure.
You know, they're tired maybe of the superheroes and the shoot 'em ups and all that kind of stuff, and they just want, quote, a good movie. And you're always kind of like not quite sure where to go with that.
Yeah.
So, but I actually have one that fits the bill. I think it's really cute. It's called Growing Up Smith. It takes place in 1979, where a family from India has moved to the United States, and they're living in a typical small American suburb. So the family lives in a nice home. Dad has a good job as a CPA. Mom stays home with the kids, which the family consists of 10-year-old Smith, who's the main character, and his teenage sister. And Smith, he was born in India, but he got his new nickname from his parents because they wanted him to have a typical American name.
More typical than Smith.
Right, without realizing the difference between first and last names in America. So his name is Smith. And although the parents are living, their own version of the American dream, and they want the best for their kids, they're also working really hard to preserve their cultural identity and pass along their native customs to their kids. But of course, all Smith and his sister want to do is to become as American as possible. So Smith knows his parents expect him to become a doctor, and he's fine with that. But things take a turn when Smith finds out that his parents have already arranged for his future marriage to a young girl who lives in India. So what they don't know, and what he's been keeping secret, is that he has just a massive crush on the little girl next door, and her name is Amy.
So the girl next door, Amy, is she also from India? Or?
No, she's American.
Okay.
Her family's American. And not only is she pretty, really nice, fun to be with, her parents, of course, are actually the cool parents in town. So the total opposite of Smith's parents. Her dad rides a motorcycle, her mom is blonde and beautiful, and they pretty much let Amy do anything she wants to do. And actually, Amy's dad, Butch, which is a pretty American name, you gotta like that, becomes sort of a mentor to Smith, helps him deal with bullies, and encourages to embrace like some all-American activities and stuff like that, which is fun. So what follows is the story of Smith and Amy's friendship, which is really sweet and fun. And Smith and his sister struggle to adopt an American lifestyle while still respecting their parents' wishes. And then, of course, what happens to Smith and Amy's friendship and their life when everything doesn't quite turn out the way they hope. So super cute. I mean, it's just really charming.
Juggling a lot of themes, it looks like,
It
too.
does. It's just charming, funny, really affectionate look at the 70s, including some great music. Smith manages to give John Travolta and the Bee Gees a run for his money in a pretty cute scene. And also just like a really heartwarming look at families and the tough love, that's involved sometimes. So do you remember the TV series The Wonder Years?
Oh, yeah. One of my favorites, actually.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So where an adult, Kevin Arnold, is looking back on his childhood. Mm-hmm. So this has a definite Wonder Years vibe to it.
Okay.
The sibling relationship is great between Smith and his teenage sister. She has her own issues. And then also just a really cute snapshot of what small-town America was like in the 70s. So it generated some buzz at some of the smaller film festivals, recently out on DVD, and really worth a watch. Rated PG-13. It's really pretty tame, so, parents can watch it with tweens. And I think they'd really, all would really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's got a lot going for it. It sounds like a really great movie.
It does.
And,
Super
and
cute.
There's the other movie that deals with cultural issues and assimilating with immigration stories right now is The Big Sick. It seems to be getting a lot of buzz in theaters right now. And so this might be for someone who maybe just saw that movie. It sounds like it would be a good sort of companion piece to it.
It is pretty good because you have Amy's parents next door to Smith's parents, the interaction of those. And again, like the parents in The Big Sick.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun.
All right. Well, thanks, Becky.
Sure.
All right. I'm going to talk about my movie now. My movie, it's very different. It's documentary, and I'm also going to get a 2-for-1 because it's sort of like a making of documentary about an album. The album happened to be like my favorite album from last year, so I get to kind of talk about both.
A win-win for you.
Yeah. So it's basically like a music documentary, and it's called One More Time with Feeling, but it's really not like your typical music documentary. it's a heavy film, I'm not going to lie. I hope that doesn't detract people from wanting to go see it because it's really worth it. It's really unusual and extraordinary. One More Time with Feeling follows Nick Cave. Nick Cave is an Australian musician, writer, and poet. He's probably best known for his rock group Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds and Grinder Man, but he's been around for decades, consistently releasing just classic post-punk garage rock albums, and they all kind of have a really dark aura to them. So that's sort of Nick Cave's thing. And he's also found success lately writing movie screenplays, like he wrote The Proposition, and composing a lot of movie soundtracks with his writing partner Warren Ellis. And so this is really just it's a making of documentary for their latest album, which was called The Skeleton Tree, and it's directed by Andrew Dominic. But the big elephant in the room, and it really is kind of treated that way for the first chunk of the movie, is that during the making of this album, Nick Cave's teenage son, named Arthur, he died suddenly and tragically falling off a cliff during an acid trip. And it doesn't go into too many details about that in the movie, but you're just sort of... You come to realize that if you didn't know already just from reading news reports or whatever. So actually, Nick Cave, being sort of the workaholic that he is, dives deeper into his work as a way of processing this. And he commissioned this documentary and agreed to let Dominic, the director, shoot whatever he wanted as long as Cave got to cut anything he didn't like. And apparently Cave was actually really not that happy with the final cut because he really worried that it was exploitative,
and
of
too
this
personal,
situation.
maybe.
And too personal.
Yeah.
But he let Dominic, just out of artistic integrity, he let him release it anyways and didn't recommend any cuts. So you are seeing everything here. And he's actually come around completely and has since said that the movie, he sees it now as actually a gift to himself and his wife and to his son. What makes this unique, it's black and white. It was shot in 3D.
Wow.
It was initially intended to be just shown one day in theaters around the world. Never was supposed to be released on DVD or Blu-ray. He was never intended to make any profit off this movie at all. But the audiences and the critics were just so kind of blown away by it that they had a few other releases in theaters, and then they decided to release it on DVD and Blu-ray. So even though this movie came out last year, we're just now getting it on DVD and Blu-ray, and we have it here at the library. And I think what you have is this Gothic poet, and traditionally he's always kind of hid behind characters and the theatrics of the stage. But now he's working through this really jolting and life-altering moment of grief. And he's kind of using music as both distraction and therapy.
Comfort.
Yeah, it's kind of both, and he's struggling with that and what that means. And, the result of this is really something artistically that's brutally honest and vulnerable. I mean, the performances are just so raw and unpolished, kind of because he's at a moment in his life where he just doesn't care, And in the interviews, which were completely unscripted, he so often just seems kind of at a loss for words because he doesn't know how to make sense of it. And then his wife is in the movie too, and she's also an artist, and we actually see them kind of struggling together, and they're both just pouring themselves into their work and just honestly just trying to get through the day. They're just trying to get through the day. And so that sounds like a really fun viewing, doesn't it? No, but it's really powerful. And if that doesn't get you, I don't think the movie is only interested in Cave's grief. It's equally fascinating to just watch the band work. I mean, these are guys, Warren Ellis, who's sort of his co-conspirator. These are guys who have been making music for decades, and they're also artistically struggling with how, as an aging rock star, you continue to stay fresh and explore new territories. So they sort of talk about their philosophies of music and composing music, and you get to see them, stumble on sounds. And so philosophically, the music was sort of written to be intentionally aimless and exploratory. So it almost becomes eerie how much the album's music reflects the tragedy of Arthur's death, because in reality, the music was actually written before this happened, and you're only watching the recording of it. Anyways, so there's a lot in there, and it is just now available. So I can't recommend it enough, and especially if you like documentaries, I think it's to me, it's one of the best ones I've seen in a long time.
And I know when we were chatting earlier about it, it almost sounds like it'd be great to watch the documentary first and then listen to the album if you're not familiar with the album.
Well, yeah, because if you're not familiar with Nick Cave or with that particular album, it could be a little
dark.
Well, especially really dark, and it could also just be a little hard to
grasp the meaning behind it
right
all.
away. And then if you watch the documentary, I think they give the songs a whole new meaning, I think.
Yeah, right. So it's kind of fun, Nate. Yours is the dark documentary. Watch the documentary and listen to the music first, and then you can watch Growing Up Smith
Yes.
and maybe have a few grins afterwards.
Yeah, have a little recovery after
Hopefully
that.
a little bit of balance there.
Yeah. All right. Well, those are our bonus features, and we really hope that you check them out. Now, so I know One More Time with Feeling is on DVD. We don't have it on Blu-ray, but we do have it on DVD.
Right.
Now, Growing Up Smith.
Just on DVD.
Okay.
And definitely in the library, so put your holds on.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Becky, for coming on the podcast again.
Sure.
All right, so if you are interested in checking out either of our bonus features, visit our website so you can search our catalog. The website's located at www.cooklib.org, and if it's checked out, you can definitely put your holds on those films, and we'll let you know when they're ready for pickup. Or if they're on shelf, come on into the library and say, hey. While you are on our website, we always want to recommend that you check out our blog, which is called Shelf Life. That's where a few of us librarians like to regularly post all the stuff that we're reading, that we're watching. We post stuff about local history, genealogy help. The other thing I'd like to point out while I've got you about our website is to check out our bookies page. It's cooklib.org/bookies, BOOKIES, and this is where you can go and actually see what some of our librarians are reading at the moment, and you can also request some good titles or some good recommendations from individual librarians. And so if you're just looking for stuff, you really need a good book, you need a good movie to watch, check out that bookies page and see if we can help you out. As far as the podcast goes, we always welcome your feedback. If you have any suggestions for topics or future episodes, or you just want to say hi, you can always reach out to us on Twitter, just at the library's handle @cooklibrary, or you can also just send us an email. Send that email to webmaster@cooklib.org. If you like what you're hearing, please share this podcast with your friends, with your family. Let them know that they can subscribe in Apple Podcasts, or really wherever they like to listen to their podcasts. Speaking of Apple Podcasts, if you're looking for a way to send us some love or some support, one of the best ways that you can actually help us out is to just leave us a nice rating on Apple Podcasts. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. We'll be back soon, but until then, keep reading, keep watching, and keep listening.